Say, what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. You're down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and some good insight on things related to prison, and I'm going to share a little bit with y'all today. In the event you happen to like this, then definitely be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and most definitely hit that notification bell. That way, anytime I drop a story, you will be notified ASAP, and you can hop on it whenever you're ready. Also, like I told y'all, man, I be rapping, and the flow is nothing like Curtis Blow. Don't get it twisted. So definitely be sure to check out my song called Never Gave Me Therapy. I got a video for that. It's on all major streaming sites. Also be sure to check out my YouTube playlist. Scroll down to gas stations and you will check all my music out there. You definitely gonna be surprised. Don't get it twisted. Everybody tell me I always go to your music expecting to hear some boo-boo, and it's not that. Okay, so right here, we're going to get into, a lot of times I always get people asking me, what's the difference between a convict and an inmate? So I'm going to give y'all my definition and my opinion of that, Now, a convict is a person who has a certain disdain for law enforcement. More often than not, he's a career criminal. He's an individual who sticks to his belief system when he goes to prison. As a convict, we know, man, that we was out there doing crime, and when we get knocked, we take it on the chin. You got to be able to accept the good and the bad, and so an inmate may be an individual who's just out drinking. He's having a good night. He didn't have too much to drink. He'd run a stop sign, crash, kill somebody, or hurt somebody, or whatever, and go to prison. He's not necessarily a career criminal. He's just an individual being housed in prison, and he's going along to get along. Of course, he's going to stick to some of the prison rules, because in the event he don't, it could become a physical discipline for him. But for the most part, he's just there. He's trying to go home. Now, you don't have to be a gang member to also be a convict, because you have individuals on the street who are criminals or who are not gang members, who also have a disdain for law enforcement. So don't get that part twisted either. But now, when I first came to prison, one of the first things that I learned as a convict is you never approach and talk to the police alone. You always have another convict at your side, so whatever you say can be vouched for and verified by the other individual who you took with you. Now, let me give you a scenario. Say you approach the police, the CO, and you just going about a simple bed move. Your homeboy, he's in the cell by himself. You want to be moved down there with him. But before you go approach the CO to talk about this bed move, you went and bought some weed from an individual. Let's say Big Mike. You go buy some weed from Big Mike. Maybe you didn't really like the weed or whatever. Y'all argued a little bit about the price or the quality of it or whatever. But hey, okay, you just like, okay, I ain't getting no more weed from Big Mike. So after that, you go to talk to the police and to CO. You go to have a harmless conversation about being moved down to your homeboy. Now, Big Mike been on the yard selling weed for about a year. So however they have received it, the administration has got word that he's selling weed, and they fist to run up in his cell and try to catch him with some weed. So now you have the bad luck of just so after you had the conversation with the CO, 20 minutes later, they run up in his cell. So now everyone who was up there watching you talk to the CO, to them, it may appear of you went and gave some information on Big Mike. And of course, that situation will not end well for you. And so it's just things like that is the difference between a convict and an inmate. Later on, as I started to do time, man, I started to do what I considered extreme inmate behavior by a lot of individuals who called themselves gang members. You have dudes up there at the podium talking to the CO. They'd have their photo album out. And they're going through their photo album. They're going through pictures, laughing and joking and stuff like that. That right there is extremely suspect behavior. Because let's keep it real. You're a Crip, you're a Blood, or whatever you was you out there on the streets at the police car hanging out, laughing and talking. So for you to be in prison and doing stuff like that, it looks extremely suspicious, and when I first hit the pen, it was convicts looked out for each other because we could empathize with each other in ways that other individuals may not. Basically it was all for one and one for all. When I first got there, you'd have dudes come up to you with state-supplied cleaning supplies, and they give these to you because nobody wants to move into a cell without scrubbing it down and cleaning it real good, because you don't know how the individuals who may have been in that cell before you live. So everybody wants to disinfect their cell and all that stuff. Well, later on, it got to the point where you had some inmates, because that's what they were running around selling cleaning supplies. Now, you may have inmates who are porters. And porters clean the buildings in the California prisons. And so these porters have action at getting a lot of this disinfectant. And just stuff like that, to me, that was inmate behavior. I would never sell an individual, regardless of how bad I was doing, I would never sell an individual some stuff that the state gave me free. Now, if it was something that you had got sent in your package or you had paid for, that's totally understandable, but to go around selling, but that's how that's how it had got. Some individuals will say, oh man, well, that's my hustle, I don't have nothing. But to me, when the state provided you with things to give to other convicts free, there was no need to be running around selling them. But like I said, a lot of times the difference between a convict and an inmate is really just a self-enforced ideology or mentality. Another thing that I would have never done as a convict. Now, by doing time and stuff in prison, we do a lot of the same behaviors that we did on the streets. And by that, I mean laughing, clowning, joking with your homeboy and this and that. But one thing I was extremely mindful to never do, never clown my homeboy or any other individual, belittle or argue in front of the CO. You had some individuals who, because in prison we have a lot of dudes who are basically natural comedians, clowns, but some individuals would get a kick out of putting on a spectacle for the COs by laughing, talking about another individual, clowning somebody. I would never do that, at the expense of them to try to entertain the CO. So we seen a whole lot of behavior, I seen a whole lot of behavior as time progressed, and I got into my sentence that, would have got a person disciplined or was extremely frowned upon later on by these inmates who were gang members. Let me explain the situation to you. When I was at North Kern Prison, they happened to give me a job in the Retherm kitchen. And the Retherm kitchen was basically a big old giant kitchen where we was cleaning all the trays and making food for all the buildings in that entire prison. And one of the things that I love to do while I was working that job, I hated working in the kitchen, but I love to make sure that the trays that were going to the reception building. A reception building is when you're coming straight from the county jail. Now, when you're coming straight from the county jail, you have no property whatsoever, or very little property. You don't have your food. It don't matter if you could have all the money in the world on your books, but until you get a chance to go to the canteen and get you some food, you're not supposed to have too much to eat. Breakfast come about 6:37. They give you a sack lunch. Normally the sack lunch is bread, an apple, some cookies or something like that. And then they fed you dinner maybe around 5:30, 6 o'clock. So come, for a grown man up in there, 200 pounds or whatever, 150 pounds, whatever, you was going to be extremely hungry without anything else to eat. So what I would like to do when I worked in there, and I knew, because where trays is going, I would like to especially make the trays for the reception people extremely fat. And I would like to make the trays that was going to the hole extremely fat for the same particular reason, because a lot of times when you're in the hole, you have very little to eat. And so, but now, this was 2012. At this point in time, you had a lot of individuals who worked up in the kitchen, a lot of younger dudes, man, and they didn't care. They was just, we had to report for work maybe about 3 o'clock in the morning. So a lot of dudes was just trying to hurry up, get the job done so we could finish up and head back, whether that was 9:30, 10 o'clock, whatever. So a lot of those, it was our job also to clean the trays, You clean them out pretty good. Then you put them in this machine. The machine runs them up under some water, and then they would be cleaned like that. Well, you had a lot of individuals in there was half cleaning the trays. The trays would come out dirty, and so now when we're making the food, there's dirt, and I mean there's food from the previous night on the trays. You had some of these inmates in there. They didn't care. They still was putting the new food on top of this old other dirty food, and to me that was something that extremely bothered me because, like I said before, I could empathize with being in the reception or being in the hole with nothing to eat. And so I tried to explain to some of these individuals. I said, hey man, you don't know who could be getting these trays. These trays could be going to your homeboys. But those individuals, they still didn't care enough to take their time and clean the trays, make sure that the trays was nice and fat, And for me, it didn't matter if the tray was going to a white individual, going to a Hispanic individual, Asian, black, or whatever. I wanted the trays right for everybody because, like I say, in my mind, some instances, being a convict is bigger than the racial politics that going up in there. As a man, I can respect another man, wanting to get his issue, man, especially when this stuff is coming from the state and we're not paying for it. And also, to keep it real, I had a job one time in Ironwood in the kitchen. And me being a black, I hated working in the kitchen for this other reason. Now, when the Hispanics, when they worked in the kitchen, they was all one and together. If you've been watching my channel or other prison channels, the blacks have a lot of different divisions. They have a lot of different cars and they have a lot of different factions. And so let's say at the end of the day, when we're working in the kitchen, there might be 200 ice creams left over. So, of course, we divide the ice creams evenly among the black convicts up in there, the Hispanic convicts, and the white convicts. Now, you have some dudes who are working in the kitchen. They're in the back of the kitchen, and they have access to the food. So I think it was called linebackers or something. Sometimes people have been in there longer and they have seniority. You have other individuals who are in the kitchen. They might be assigned to the outer part of the kitchen to where they're just wiping down tables and this and that. So the cooks and all that stuff, they had action at the food. So they would get the ice creams or whatever was designated for the blacks, and say if there was maybe 100 ice creams, they might, if there was enough ice creams for every black in there to get 3, they might give all the blacks 2, and they take home the rest. Whereas the Hispanics and the whites, they would divide everything evenly. And so to me, it's certain things like this that should transcend and be bigger than what particular hood you was from or whatever, and that, seeing that division is something that I didn't like, and like I say, in my mind, those individuals, they had an inmate mentality, because convicts, to a certain degree, we got to stay together, man. And so, inmates, like I said, inmates, they're just there. They're not necessarily a criminal. It may have been an individual who just made a mistake. He's doing his time. He's trying to get out. A couple of days ago, I interviewed an individual, and he was a non-affiliate. And like I believe I told you guys earlier, and if I didn't, just because you're a non-affiliate still doesn't mean you cannot be a convict. But the non-affiliate by the name of Chris, he happened to mention that he was in the county jail, and a white Christian came and told him that the Hispanics were planning to attack the blacks. And you had a few individuals comment that that's something that's very unbelievable. But for me, it wasn't unbelievable at all, because like I said, you have everybody in here. Everybody in prison doesn't adhere to the so-called convict code. You have individuals in there who talk, they're human. They talk to other individuals, and after a while, they become friends. You have individuals who may not believe in hurting people and stuff like that, regardless of them being in prison. Like I say, sometimes you may have a person in prison for tax fraud or whatever. Who knows? But everybody is not that. Everybody does not subscribe to the convict code, violent and all that type of stuff. So for him to come and inform Chris that the Hispanics were planning on attacking him is very believable, because those riots get extremely hurt. Those riots get extremely bad. Some people can get extremely hurt. Some people get killed. There have been many, many, many people killed in county jails before. And so, individuals like that, it's not hard for me to believe, because like I say, everybody's not working out of the same kit. Everybody's not working out of the same belief system. Everybody has different principles. Now, we all know, if you've been watching these prison channels long enough, the Hispanics, the Southsiders, are not supposed to do business with the blacks. And in the event they do, and it's found out, they're going to get some extreme physical punishment coming their way. Well, in Ironwood, I was selling weed. I had several Hispanics who would come and buy weed from me and tell me, hey, I'll get you when I go to the store or whenever. And then, I'll drop the bag in front of your door. I can't give it to you because I don't want my people to see. But whenever it's clear, I'll drop the bag in front of your door. And they would do that. And I said that to say, now, there's a code that they know they're not supposed to do business with blacks, but they still would risk it in anyway, some of them. So if you have individuals risking that code, why do you think people don't break other codes? For individuals who've never been to prison, I think that some of you guys assume that every individual in there always does what they're supposed to do. And if that was the case, then of course there would be no snitches. There would be no need for SNY yard and things of that nature. There's often a lot of telling in prison. To keep it real, there's a lot of telling. Dudes dropping kites, all types of stuff. I didn't see individuals be passed knives and be told to go steal somebody or go stab somebody. The dude went and dropped the knife in the mailbox and went to the program office and said he had to go. So, it's always a lot of type of stuff going on in there that individuals may not know about. I remember another time I was on the level 2 yard, and now on the level 2 yard, since it's open, it's a dorm, some of the level 2 yards are open in dorms and some of them are cells. But the ones that I happened to be at was dorms. And so, it's just basically like a big old dormitory, like an army barracks, pretty much. So your next door neighbor, while they'll put it might be bunk bed, so it'll be both blacks on the bed, but your next door neighbor right there could be Hispanic. One of my neighbors happened to be Hispanic, and this is where I began, due to the openness, I started to talk more and associate with him, just because when I was on the level 3, I just stuck with my people. I played basketball, basketball and this and that. But, now when you're more around them, you guys begin to talk and this and that. So I had a real extremely cool Hispanic neighbor. And so, we sit there and we chop it up and talk, and I had just got a package one day, and like I say, when we're in prison, we're deprived from a whole lot of good things. And so, I'm sitting right there. I asked him, hey man, you want a couple pieces of candy? He looked around and said, hell yeah. And I slid him the candy. Now, had he got caught taking that candy, he would have been in extreme trouble, So maybe about a month or so later, he got his package. He said, hey man, he threw me some candy, of course. Now, when I gave him my candy, it wasn't contingent upon when you get your package, you return it. I'm just, hey man, dude was a cool dude, so that racial shit was out the window. You know what I'm saying? And when he got his package, being a cool individual, he looked back out. And so that's all I'm saying, that, individuals sometimes, man, the human element is around in prison a lot, because the more you start to talk to other people, the more you start to make a connection, you see that, hey man, this dude is very similar to me. We're just on different sides of the fence. And due to the political setup of prison, sometimes individuals have to do what they do, and that's just the gist of it, man. You have, like I say now, inmates. Inmates they're gonna do the bare minimum of the so-called convict code, because they never subscribe to that to begin with. So, you're going to have inmates, man, doing whatever they do, staying out the way. They may not mind being in the face of the police, talking to the police, because they're not concerned with the opinions of others or what other people was thinking about them. Now, no matter how small you guys may consider that, but that was something I was extremely concerned with, what other convicts thought of me, because as a prisoner, as a gang member, as a convict, your reputation is all you have, especially as a gang member, and especially back in the days when I started gang banging in the mid to late 80s, before the crack was super tough and everybody had to, the money and this and that. You was in the streets to get a reputation. So, your reputation was all you had, and like I said many times before in some of my videos, you could be a rider from 86 to 2006. But on 2007, you do the wrong thing. You turn down the fade. You don't respond in a way that is respected and considered the way of Crips and Bloods. Then everything you done in the past is out the window, and now you a buster and you're being ostracized. So, like I said, a reputation is what every gang member had. And so, yeah, I was concerned with what other convicts thought of me. So I made sure not to do anything that would be suspect, and that's the way it was, man. I had my very, very first cellie when I got to Salinas. At that point in time, he probably was about 40, and he had been to prison 3 or 4 times and this and that. And, he claimed to be a cold convict. I never forget, he showed his ID, because like I told you guys in some of my previous stories, we opened up Salinas. That prison was a brand new prison. So he showed one of the lieutenants his prison number, and his prison number started with a C, which meant that he had been coming to jail for a long time. And I remember him saying to the lieutenant or the sergeant, "Hey man, you want a convict? You want a real convict up in your he was trying to get a job to be a clerk, So many years later, 2018, I get moved to CMC West, and this dude is there. He's in the honor building, and now he didn't flip. He's no longer a convict. He was the ultimate inmate. And I'll explain to y'all why. First of all, he was in an honor building, and which was the reception building, and the reception building or the honor building was, I believe, those was like 40-man buildings, as opposed to the other buildings, it was 80-man buildings. And so in an 80-man building, of course, it's going to be harder to use the bathroom. It's going to be harder to use the shower. It's more noise. It's everything up in there. Now, it wasn't nothing wrong with him being in an honor building, but it was just all the other things that was going around about him, And as we was up in there, I seen that when guys would come up in there, they'd get too loud, they'd be moved out, And of course, he became extremely cool with the police. He was the police's porter up in there. And what really rubbed me the wrong way about him is we had the blacks and the Asians share the TV room, and the whites and Hispanics share the TV room. And so those TVs were like some TVs on the wall, and they had remote controls. And so he would sleep to about 2 or 3 in the morning and stay up, when he at nighttime he'd watch TV all night. But long story short, he would keep the remote control in his pocket. So the blacks would have to get up and turn the TV manually. And so, you had on this level 2, you had a lot of either older dudes or dudes who didn't have much time, or lifers who was trying to go home. And so many people wouldn't speak up. Plus, like I said, this was a reception building. So a lot of people wasn't even there that long. They might come there in the building for about a week. Then they get moved out to another building where they would be permanently. So he had become accustomed to holding on to the remote control, even though this was the black TV room. Now, he wouldn't have done that at no level 4. Now, in the level 4s, it's a different setup anyway, but in the event it was set up like that, because at a level 2, we just have a TV room. You can't have your personal TVs. But anyway, he wouldn't have even tried that at a level 4. But now, since we're here, you take certain type of liberties, and that's nothing that a convict would do. So, of course, I'm not a big TV watcher. But after a while, I just couldn't take it for the principle. So I went and got it and like, hey, man, hey, let us get the TV, man. Where's the remote control? And so he told me it was in his jacket pocket. He said, hey, well, chill, you can use it. But when you get finished, bring it back. I said, man, I'm not fit to bring it back. This shouldn't even be in your pocket. It should be under the TV so the individuals that's in there can turn the TV and stuff, at will. And this went on in a couple of other rooms too. With the blacks, because like I say, there's a lot of dissension and division amongst us, and dudes would do stuff like that, man, where they wasn't looking out for all the blacks like they should. But in the event a riot or something jumped off and you didn't participate, then would be the same individuals that would be upset, saying that you didn't show up for the cause. But if you want me to show up for the cause, the cause has to be there 100%, not when it's convenient for you. You can't treat me like being black don't matter because it benefits you to hold on to the TV room or the remote control or a lot of other situations that I've seen, And so, like I say, to me, things like that, if you're a convict, you're going to be that same convict regardless of where you at. If you on a level 4, you on a level 2, level 1, you're going to stay the same. It's just certain things that convicts don't do. And so, like I said, being a convict is really more of a self-enforced code. You have certain ethics and a certain etiquette that you place on yourself, And that's the thing right there, man. Anybody can be an inmate, but it takes a whole lot to be a convict, And so when you go into prison, you have to be willing to, accept these knots and stuff. And one last thing I hated, man, is when the cell phones came, Now, all of a sudden, a lot of inmates who had cell phones, they may get mad at other individuals who was doing things to make, because the police, the COs, they have a certain tactic that they call divide and conquer. And they would love to do that, man. They would love to come in the cell. Maybe if I'm messing up, they come in the cell and only search my celly stuff, knock it all on the floor and this and that, and trying to make my celly get mad at me, which would be understandable in the event I was doing something dumb and out of line. But you would have a lot of individuals who would get mad at a particular dude because the police would say, well, we're searching everybody's cell because of Johnson. And, they'd go in there, maybe find the cell phone or whatever. But, when the judge sentenced you to all that time, he didn't promise you to have a cell phone, or he didn't promise you that you'd get a phone call every day. All that type of stuff comes with being a convict. And then, they say, oh, man, well, this dude is disrespecting us in the police. And it just all depends on what was what the infraction was and how was the disrespect, because you had several COs, especially on the lower levels where there's less violence and they know people have more to lose, more individuals is short. You had some COs who would definitely cross the line and be disrespectful on a daily basis. And so one day I had to go speak up for Blood. They was mad at him because he had done something and they came in there and searched the building. I said, but man, that CO right there disrespect us every single day. He was extremely disrespectful CO. I said, but y'all not willing to jump on him, hide your cell phones better. But see, a lot of them inmates, they will quickly get caught up in the divide and conquer tactics by the COs, I mean, you got to take it on the chin. Now, there would be some instances that would be extremely dumb. Now, the police would have a radio sitting on the podium. Now, you might have a dummy go by and steal the radio. Now, of course, that the CO is supposed to come search people's cells. So something like that, I could understand about talking to the individual, letting him know, hey, man, when you do something like that, they supposed to disrespect everybody. Or, one time you had some individual, he poured some coffee or something in the CO's chair. That's almost equivalent to your girlfriend getting mad coming and scratching your car. If you got a problem with the CO, address him personally. But I'm talking about a dude walking in the building, the CO say, hey, let me get your ID. And then they have a spontaneous meeting, and the inmate, the CO say something crazy, and then the convict cuss the dude out. You can't be mad about that, And so that's something that I didn't like with some blacks. They would let the police use that divide and conquer tactic to a T, and they would fall for it, and they'd be willing to want to beat up the black and get rid of him as opposed to dealing with the situation. So like I say, man, those are just some of the things that make up the difference, in my opinion, between a convict and an inmate. I'm never supposed to let no other inmate tell me I need to make another convict or dude that's locked up, follow the rules to a certain extent, But anyway, y'all already know what it is, man. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.